Perhaps you can say something.
No, I mean, I have.
Yeah.
I mean, well, yeah, we're very happy that Prem Prayojan Prabhu is back in Yuvraj after 15 years. So, thank you so much for coming, Prem Prayojan Prabhu. Thank you for accepting our invitation, and hopefully this is not the first or the last. You know, like after 15 years, it's like now it's starting again. So thank you for coming, and thank you for everybody for attending. And this is just the beginning. We're gonna have a nice week of nice Ekata.
Hare Krishna. Srila Gurudev ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, you know that the festival was not supposed to start until Friday, right? But I had to arrive a few days earlier because I flew in from New Zealand, 16-hour flight yesterday. So I'm a bit discombobulated right now. And but then I saw on the calendar, today is Aksaya Tritiya. So Aksaya Tritiya is such an important day. So I cannot just lie there recovering from jet lag. On this day, I'll have to come and have Vaishnava darshans. Darshan of the Vaishnavas here. Darshan of Sri Radha Govinda, Shri Gauranitai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra, Srila Gurudev, Samadhi. And because what you do on this day, whatever you begin on this day, it will be unstoppable, it will go on forever, and it must be successful. So this day is very, very important. So I'd like to speak a few words about the glories of Aksaya Tritiya and some katha also in connection with that. Nam Shrishtam Manamapi Shachiputram Atra Surupam Rupam Tasyakraja Muripurim Maturim Gushtuvartim Radha Kundam Girivaram Oho Radhika Madhuvasam Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Sri Guru Tammanatosmi Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadale Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namah Anandalilamaya Vigrahaya Himabhadivyatschavi Sundaraya Tasmai Mahapremarasapradaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Chiltasta Kamaditaram Kamadi Kripa Maitam Shvanam Prapanna Vrindenu Maste Charanara Vrindam Vrindenu Maste Charanara Vrindam Govinda Damo Dharamadaveti Govinda Damo Dharamadaveti Govinda Damo Dharamadaveti Govinda Damo Dharamadaveti. Everyone. Hare Krishna, Hare Yadava, Hare Saketi, Govinda Damo Dharamadaveti. Shama Sundar Shikanda Shikar Smaraha smurali manara Radhika rasakamama kripa nidhe Supriyacharna king kurim kuru Tavaivasmi Najivami Toyamana Iti Vikyayo Devi Tam Namam Charantikam. First of all, I offer my Sastang Dandavat Puspanjali, my heart like flowers, thousands and thousands of times, at the lotus feet of my holy master, my supremely worshipable spiritual Gurudev, Asmatiya Paramaradhatama Guru Pada Padma, Nityalila Pravisht Om Vishnupad, Ashtotarasata Sri Rupanugacharya Varya, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. Secondly, I offer my pranam thousands of times at the lotus feet of my Param Gurudev, to Srila Prabhupada and to all of our Sri Rupanuga Gaudiya Guru Parampara. And finally, I offer my pranam to all my dear spiritual brothers and sisters, all Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. Vanchakalpatur Sakapasam Patitam Bhavani Vaishnavi Pyo Namara. Srila Gurudeva Ki Jai. By the causes mercy of Sri Gauranga Gauranga, today we are observing the auspicious occasion of Aksaya Tritiya. The word Akshay means Akshay. Kshay means that which is diminishing. It is diminishing, it is perishable, it is in a state of the decomposition. So, in this world, everything is decomposing. Everything. This world is a kshara. There is no firm ground to stand upon anywhere. There is no security anywhere. Just like fruit, if you leave it on the table for a few days, it just withers and then it becomes rotten. So our own bodies are like this. And all things around us, even the whole universe, one day it will disappear. So everything is kshara. Our Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, he said, when a living entity with honesty comes face to face and accepts this existential reality, that everything that you know is rotting, decomposing, and will disappear, then, he was quoting from the Psalms, he said, then you will water your couch with tears. You will cry. Because one realizes, I'm drowning in an ocean with no shelter anywhere. And then when one cries out, the Supreme Lord in the heart hears his cry and he sends the association of pure devotees. When we hear from pure devotees the message of Bhagavatam, the message of the Supreme Lord, pure bhakti, at that time, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur said, then your mind becomes like a scorpion girt with fire. He's quoting the English poet Byron, Lord Byron. He wrote this in a poem. The scorpion girt with fire. Do you know what a scorpion does when they're surrounded by fire? They turn their sting on themselves. Because it's better to die from their own poison than to die a slow death, burning, being incinerated. So, when we come into contact with pure Vaishnavas, at that time, our mind should become like a scorpion girt by fire. That is, we use the mind to dissolve the mind. Some people say to believe in Krishna must be out of your mind, and we agree with them. Because Om Bhur Bhuvaha Swaha Tatsavitur, Krishna is beyond the plane of the mind, beyond the plane of the senses, beyond the plane of the mind, and beyond the plane of the intelligence. Jaryatyasu yakosham nirgirnam analoyata. Lord Kapil Dev said that by engaging in the angas of bhakti, then just as you eat food, and without thinking, without knowing how the molecular breakdown is taking place, your food is being digested. So in the same way, by engaging all the senses in the activities of bhakti, then the material mind becomes digested. Jaryatyasu yakosham nirgirnam analoyata. The subtle body becomes digested in the same way that food is digested in the stomach. So mamcho yabhyabhichayana bhakti yogena sevate sagunam samatityaitam brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Sri Krishna said, by engaging in bhakti continuously, without interruption, then one rises above the gunas, everything which is trigunatmak, and attains the spiritual platform, the transcendental platform. My pranam, Prankeshwar Prabhu, Champakalat, my pranams again and again. So we're just discussing the meaning of the word, the Akshay. Today is Aksaya Tritiya. So, just to recap, when a person realizes that everything in this world is in a state of decomposition and there's no shelter everywhere, then he will water his couch with tears, crying out for help, for shelter. And Supreme Lord sends to that person Sri Guru. And then taking shelter of Sri Guru, one should engage in bhakti, knowing samsara dhavan alalita loka. We're in the forest fire. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur said, then one's mind becomes like a scorpion girt by fire. The scorpion turns the sting on himself and finishes himself before the fire can get him. So the devotee engages very powerfully in bhakti, by which the subtle body, which is the cause of transmigration, keep remaining in this fire of birth and death. That subtle body becomes dissolved. Hiya yasya haridasa karmanama nasagriya nikalas avapyasu jivan muktas uchate. And when the subtle body is dissolved, then even though the devotee is apparently still in this world, is jivan mukta, liberated even while living. So Aksaya Tritiya is the day when we deliberate on the difference between the kshay, that which is perishable, and that which is akshay, eternal. On this day, Aksaya Tritiya, at the end of the Kali Yuga, Kalki appears. Not in this Kali Yuga, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come, so Kalki was included within him. But in the other 999 Kali Yugas, in the cycle of ages, Kalki appears and destroys all those who are adharmic. And then he reinitiates the next Satyuga. So this is the day that the Kali Yuga ends and the next Satyuga is initiated. Then also in the Treta Yuga, the Treta Yuga also began on this day. So in the Satyuga, they were Paramahamsas. They didn't need to perform Vedic yagyas because Kriteya Dhyayato Vishnu. Tretayan Yajatkuto Makai Dwapare Parichayanam Kalotad Hari Kirtanat. The Yuga Dharma in the Satyuga was dhyan, meditation. But then Tretayan Yajato Makai, sacrifice began on the first day of the Treta Yuga in accordance with the teachings of the three Vedas. So also, this is the appearance day of Lord Parashuram. So what did Parashuram do? Parashuram annihilated 21 times all the generations of social administrators, the Kshatriyas, who were against Bhagavan, against Dharma. So we see at each time in history, this Aksaya Tritiya was a turning point where corruption, materialistic mentality and godlessness was completely overturned in a revolution, and Dharma was established again. and devotion was established again. This is some of the significance of Aksaya Tritiya. Also, on this Aksaya Tritiya, our Param Gurudev, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshu Goswami, along with our most dear Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, that time Abhay Charnaravinda Prabhu, on this day in 1941 in Calcutta, in Bospard Lane, they signed the documents and established the Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti. On this day, it is said that Lord Brahma created the universe on this day also. On this day, in the Badrinarayan, the temple is closed during the winter. Everything is covered in snow. Everyone leaves. The whole town is evacuated. Only a few yogis stay there on the bank of Taptakund, because there's a very hot spring there that's steaming all year round. So, but other than that, everyone leaves. And at that time, then the Devatas come from the higher planets and they do the puja, while the pujari is going to defrost somewhere else. But then, on this very day, all the pujaris come back and the doors of the temple of Badrinarayan are opened. So that is a very significant place. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur calls our school the Badrinath school. Just like Shankaracharya's center is in Kashi. But our school is the Badrinath school. Why? Because we are the followers of the Bhagavat. And it was there, if you go to Badrinath and you go about 3 kilometers a little bit further up, you come to the village of Mana, then there are no roads. You have to get out of your jeep, your 4-wheel drive jeep, and then you have to keep walking, and you come to Bhimpool and so on, and then you come to the Vyas Gufa, the cave of Srila Vyasadeva, and his next door neighbor, his secretary Ganesh Gufa, the cave of Ganesh. And it was there that Srila Vyasadeva, he was sitting in meditation and he was compiling his scriptures. So on this day, he began writing the Mahabharata, also on this day. So later, Vyasadeva was not satisfied. He was not satisfied. And Narad Muni came to him, asked, "Are you satisfied?" Why? Why? Because he had not elaborately explained the beautiful pastimes of Shri Krishna, and especially he had not glorified the superiority, the greatness of Srimati Radhika. So by the blessings of Narad Muni, then Bhakti Yogena Manasi Samyak Pranihil Male Apasyat Purusham Purnam Mayang Chatada Pasayam. He went into Samadhi, and by the mercy of his Gurudev, all the beautiful sweet pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan were manifest in his heart, and then he dictated to Ganesh Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the Amala Puran. It is the immaculate Purana. It is the immaculate Pramana. Also, it is the immaculate evidence on all issues. So, this is called our line is the Badrinath school, because we are the followers of the Bhagavat. Also there in Badrinath, Uddhav is there. Naranarayan Rishi are doing austerities among the sages for the benefit of the whole world since Satyuga. But before Krishna left this world, he told Uddhav, Nuddhavan vapimanyu no. Yadguna nadida prabhu ato madvayanam bhatam lokam grihayan hiyatishtatu. O Uddhav, you should stay in this world. Why? To speak Bhagavatam. Because Krishna had instructed the Uddhav in Bhagavatam. He said, Nuddhavan vapimanyu no. O Uddhav is not even anu. That means not even atomically less than myself. Krishna said, Uddhav is not even atomically less than myself. Yadguna nadita prabhu. He's not oppressed in any way by the gunas, by the waves of material energy. He's transcendental. Ato vayuna lokam grahaniya tishtatu. So you should stay in this world and speak Srimad Bhagavatam. Why is Uddhav not even atomically less than Krishna? Because Srimad Bhagavatam is Sri Krishna's Vanmoy Murti, Sri Krishna's sound incarnation. So he said, Krishnai swadhama bhagate dhamma jnana dibisaha kalau nashta dashamesha purana kodunoditaha. Krishna had left the world and Kali Yuga began, and all the sages were in great anxiety. What will happen now? Where will Dharma, religion, and Gyan, transcendental knowledge, go for shelter? So Sutta Goswami reassured them. He said, oh, now this Kali Yuga has come, and the people have lost their vision due to the darkness of Kali Yuga. But now the Srimad Bhagavatam has arisen like the sun to dispel the blindness and the darkness of Kali Yuga. And all Dharma and Jnana have taken shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam. So that Srimad Bhagavatam is Sri Krishna's own Banmayamurti, sound incarnation. So even though on the one hand it seems like Sri Krishna disappeared, but Sri Krishna was still completely present in the form of Bhagavatam. And so Krishna told Uddhav, I'm leaving but you cannot. You have to stay here and you should go. You should travel onto the bank of Jamuna. You will meet Vidura there, and then from there you should go to Badrik Ashram and you should speak the Srimad Bhagavatam to all the sages who are there in the shelter of Naranarayan, Badrinath. So today is the day that the Badrinath temple and all the service opens there. Today is also the first day of Chandan Yatra. So it was on this day, thousands of years ago, that Lord Jagannath gave an instruction to Indrajumna Maharaj. Oh, I will be very pleased if you'll cover me with a cooling sandalwood paste. So on the order of Lord Jagannath, Indrajumna Maharaj, he was personally grinding the chandan and decorating Lord Jagannath, and that became the first day of Chandan Yatra. On this day, the Gajapati Dibya Singh Dev Maharaj, he goes to the Jagannath temple and he prays to Lord Jagannath for permission to take the deities of Radha Madan Mohan. They are Lord Jagannath's Vijay Vigraha, so this is Madan Mohan. And also there are deities of Krishna Balaram also, and he requests permission from Lord Jagannath to take them for the Nauka Vilas, boating pastimes in Narendra Sarovar. Have you ever been in Puri for the Chandan Yatra? Yeah. So then the king, he receives the Agyamala, the order garland from Lord Jagannath is offered to the king, and then the king sets out from the temple with Krishna and Balaram on one palanquin, carried by the pandas. They stand chest to back, in front and behind, and they march like this, and with kirtan they carry out Krishna Balaram on one palanquin and Madan Mohan on another palanquin. And coming out of the temple, they make a left, they go a little bit down the road, and then on the right side there's a Rajanahar, and that is the palace of the king of Puri. Of course, in recent times the capital was actually, in ancient times, the capital of the king was in Cuttack, and in modern times it moved to Bhubaneswar. So, but the king, he has a palace on the Grand Road in Puri, on the right side there. I think Nishinga was with us a few years ago, and we made a program with the king of Puri in his palace. You were there?
Yes.
Yeah. So the king and Madan Mohan and Krishna Balaram on the palanquins, they come down the Grand Road and they stop outside the palace of the king. Why? Because there all the wood that has been chopped to create the rat carts is been cut and it has been placed there, but it has not been sanctified yet. And so when they come there, then the king, he prays to Madan Mohan, please give us permission to begin the construction of the rats for the Rath Yatra. And so they do a fire sacrifice and the wood is sanctified, and then on this day the craftsmen, they begin carving and constructing the ruts. And then from there, Madan Mohan continues down the Grand Road about halfway, and then you make a left, and then you come to the Narendra Sarovar. Very special place. Very special place. The first time the residents of Navadvip came to Jagannath Puri to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it was on this day, actually, the first day of the Chandan Yatra, and Mahaprabhu was there at Narendra Sarovar, and all the devotees came who were so much in separation from him after he'd left Navadvip, and then he'd been for 2 years on a tour of South India, then he came back to Puri, and then they walked for 1 month from Navadvip, and they arrived, and their beautiful meeting took place on the bank of Narendra Sarovar on this very day, the first day of the Chandan Yatra. So that time, there are boats, one boat for Krishna Balaram, one boat for Radha Madan Mohan, and they're huge boats in the shape of swans. And the deities are put on the boats, and then they're taken for a ride around the lake. They go around a few times, and then they're put in a temple on an island in the middle, and the abhishek is done, and then they have a new vesh, beautiful vesh every day. And so, and then they're very late at night, they're put back onto the palanquins and carried back to the temple. And then this happens every day. It goes every day for 21 days. And on the last day, the boats go around the lake. They have to touch the four corners 21 times. So then it really goes on till really, really late. And you have probably heard or read in Chaitanya Charitamrita that at that time, Mahaprabhu and all of his associates, they used to jump into the water and splash each other and swim along with the boats and have the Jal Bihar in the Narendra Sarovar. Also on the bank of that Narendra Sarovar, that is where Sri Gadadhar Pandit would also speak Srimad Bhagavatam to his associates. So all of these wonderful events, they have been taking place on this day for thousands of years. And so today is a day when Vaishnavas, they celebrate and remember all these pastimes. Did you offer chandan to the deities today? Who's doing the pujari, sir? You grind some, before you put them to sleep, grind some chandan, give some chandan to Krishna, and perhaps to Jagannath as well, to Krishna and Jagannath. And that will be a great start to your Chandan Yatra. And remember that this is the first day of the rest of your life. And whatever you do today, it will be akshay. It will be not in a state of deterioration. It will never diminish. It will always be growing. It will be unstoppable, and it will be successful, and it will be auspicious for the whole world. And so, even though our festival was supposed to start on Friday, then I thought, no, I just got off the plane, but I have to come here, and let's begin some Harikatha and Kirtan on this Aksaya Tritiya, so that our Kirtan and Katha will go on forever, always increasing and be unstoppable, invincible and eternal. Gaur Premanande. So, during the festival, we would like to address a number of issues. The festival will be called, it's called the Waves of Siddhanta Festival. Waves of Siddhanta. Why? Because generally we think of Siddhanta as being some kind of very fixed, monolithic doctrine, inflexible. But actually, Srila Gurudev said, there's one type of katha for Kanishta Adhikaris. There's another type of katha for Madhyam Adhikaris. And there's another type of katha for Uttam Adhikaris. Again, the katha for the Uttam Adhikaris is something quite amazing. Even though the perspective one has according to one's adhikar in the Kanishta stage and Madhyam stage is fixed for that stage, but then transforms and becomes more developed. But in the Uttam stage, then because Sandhini, Samvit and Ladini, the spiritual energies which are the cause of Anubhav, realization, they're always, You know, like the three gunas are always competing with each other, and sometimes one is prominent, sometimes another. So these, the vrittis of the Swarup Shakti, are also changing in proportions, and it produces different perspectives and different realizations of Krishna and his pastimes. And this is why Sri Swarup Damodar Goswami, he said, Chaitanyera Bhaktagan Nitya Karo Sangha Tabito Janibe Siddhanta Samudra Taranga. He told one Brahmin from Bengal who had not properly understood Srimad Bhagavatam, if you want to know Srimad Bhagavatam, Jaha Bhagavata Pada Vaishnavera Stane, sit at the feet of a pure Vaishnava and listen to them. And Chaitanyera Bhaktagan Nitya Karo Sangha, daily associates with the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his near and dear transcendental associates. And by hearing from them again and again, gradually, Tabito Janibe Siddhanta Samudra Taranga, you can gradually enter into the waves in the ocean of Siddhanta. So what type of experience is that? How do things become different when there's more Sandhini or more Ladini or more Samvit at any particular time? So we want to discuss some of these topics related to the waves of Siddhanta during this festival. During this festival, we also want to discuss some very practical things. We'll have class morning and evening. So I think in the morning it will be more Siddhanta, and in the evening more the Rasakatha in the evening. It will also be Siddhanta as well. But it's more difficult to you're more fresh in the morning. So we have the main Siddhanta in the morning and the less heavy lifting in the evening. So we want to discuss Nam Tattva, because this is something that every devotee aspires for. How can I improve the quality of my chanting? How can I really make a deep connection with Nam Prabhu? That Nam Prabhu, who is like a seed, will begin to sprout. Tabe jani aparada tohite prachu Krishna nama bija tahe na kore ankur. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Pad, he said, the name of Krishna is like a seed, and it begins to sprout. It manifests spontaneously, naturally, Krishna's form, then Krishna's qualities, then his associates, then your seva, and his Krishna's Leela, your own Surupa and Seva and Krishna's Leela, in this order, Kram, Tan Nama Rupa Charitadi Sukirtanano Smrityo Kramena, in a kram, in a sequence. This is manifest. But sometimes it happens that devotees are chanting many years, but they don't experience the Nam Ankur, the seed sprouting and beginning to manifest all these things in a sequence. So it's due to the presence of some apparatus, and especially inattentiveness, which is the root of all of them. So we want to discuss how to overcome these things, and so our seed of Nam can sprout. We'd also like to discuss some practical things for devotees in regard to our daily program, because every morning we sing Mangalatik, every noon we sing Yashomati Nandan Prajan, in the evening we sing Gaura Arti and Jai Jai Radha Krishna Jugal Milan. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the seventh Goswami, just like Vyasadeva went into trance and the Bhagavatam appeared in his heart, so Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he went into trance, and these kirtans, the eternal kirtans, they infused with Achintya Shakti, inconceivable potency. And so Gurudev used to say, these verses are like mantras. And so mantras, they open. They have a spot dharma. They have the power to burst and reveal the beautiful variegatedness of the transcendental plane. So we want to discuss some of the deep meanings of each line of the songs that we sing daily, so that we don't sing these songs in a daily way like a ritual or a mechanical ritual. Something which is it's something that we do, and we do it out of habit. But rather, every day it should be full of nectar, and each day more nectarian than the previous day. So we'd like to discuss some of those things. Now, this evening, let us consider the topic of understanding Shastra. Because this is the favorite things when devotees get together, everyone gets together and they quarrel over the meaning of the Shastra. Right? Or because if they have a very good will and soft-hearted, then they will just express their understanding, someone else will express their understanding, and they try to discuss, find out what it means. So, the understanding of the Shastra is not like reading an ordinary book. Why? Because if you read an ordinary book, it's full of knowledge of this world. And this world is the world of duality. But the Shastra, the subject of Shastra is Krishna himself. In fact, the Shastra is not different from Krishna himself. So just as you learn about the material world, it is called the Kram Purvak Vikasita Gyan. Kram Purvak Vikasita Gyan. The knowledge which gradually grows by adding pieces. Right? You go to school, you learn something one day, the next day you learn something. You add it all up, and then at the end of the year you have an exam to see if you can reproduce it, all of these bits of knowledge, all this data, all of this info. So knowledge of Krishna is not like that, the Kram Purvak Vikasita Gyan, because knowledge of Krishna is not of the world of the Dvandva, duality. See, Krishna is Vadanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yat jnanamadvayam prameti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdyate. Is the Advaya Gyan, non-dual conscious reality. Advaya Gyan Tattva, the non-dual conscious reality. So because he's non-dual, you can't learn about him in bits, because none of the bits are detachable. He's a Akhanda Tattva, he's an indivisible reality. So the reality manifests in its wholeness, or it doesn't manifest at all. Just like our Prabhupada Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, he said, we have to worship the Panchatattva. Why? Because Mahaprabhu is non-different from his associates. And if you remove any one member of the Panchatattva, they all disappear. Because Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Sruparkam Bhaktavatam Bhakta Navami Bhakta Shaktikam. They are one reality manifest in 5 features. Krishna Guru Bhakta Shakti Avatar Prakash. H.I. Rupa Krishna Karina Vilas. There's one reality, Krishna, playing in 5 features, and we can say 6 if we add the Guru, H.I. Rup, because there Krishna's Kaviraj is adding Guru also. So, when we speak about wanting to know, to realize, to understand Krishna, he's not like a historical person of this world. He's not like some superhero or some hero from history that you can just learn about. Only the persons whose consciousness is beyond duality can even have the slightest glimpse of even the effulgence of Krishna in the form of Brahman. You have to be beyond duality to experience Brahman. So what to speak about the personal form of Krishna, which is that Brahman is what is called Pratamik Pratyaksh. Is a very first, most rudimentary introduction to the experience of the non-dual absolute truth. So to know Krishna is something else. It is not like a material education. Now, as you know, conditioned souls, they have 4 defects. What are the 4 defects?
Imperfect senses. Illusion, Brahma.
Brahm pramada vipralipsa karna patav. Arsha bhigya vakya nahi dosha esav. The enlightened sages, their words are not subject to the defects which arise from Brahm, that is illusion, misidentification of the Atma with the body, and also considering the world, the objects of the world, to be existing independently of the Supreme Being, when actually he's there in every atom, and if he were not maintaining everything at every moment, it would disappear. But to think that everything is sitting around us, just existing by itself independently, that is the objective Brahm, the subjective Brahm in regard to yourself and objective Brahm in regard to the world. So that's called Brahm. Pramada. Pramada means the inability to understand the subject due to inattentiveness, due to lack of concentration. We cannot penetrate the subject. So that is called pramada. Then vipralipsa. Vipralipsa generally, we say cheating. Cheating. But even down to its subtle level, it's actually confirmational bias. Confirmational bias means when we're listening, we just hear that which confirms what we want to know, what we already know and what we want to know. So we can't do that. As devotees, we can't sit in front of Vaishnavas and sit there and expect just to have our ego stroked and everything confirmed that we already know. That's how the materialist listens, filtering out anything which is against his particular, his own pet prejudices, and only accepting that which is confirming what he already knows. So that's vipralipsa, the cheating propensity. And then karanapatav means the limitations, the imperfectness of the senses. Due to these 4 defects, we cannot know the truth. So we have to take the Shastra Yonitvat. One can know the truth from Shastra only by revelation, because that truth which is unlimited cannot be known by the limited being. Yet the unlimited being would not be unlimited if he did not have the power to reveal himself to the limited being. And he does that, first of all, through Shastra Yonitvat, through the Shastra. And of all the Shastras, which Shastra is best? Yes. Krishna Bhakti Rasa Swarup Sri Bhagavat Sarva Veda Shastra Hete Parama Mahatva. Mahaprabhu said, the Srimad Bhagavatam is Rasa Swarup, and of all the Vedic literatures, it is the most important, it is supreme. So now we come to the Srimad Bhagavatam Pramana Mamalam. Prema Pumato Mahan. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the immaculate evidence, Praman. But still, people read Srimad Bhagavatam and still there's so much confusion. So we should know that though Srimad Bhagavatam is Amala Praman, it is immaculate evidence, but not every line or every verse of Srimad Bhagavatam carries the same weight. Every line or every verse doesn't carry the same weight, because there are different types of bhasha. Bhasha means language. Different types of bhasha in Srimad Bhagavatam. So we want to discuss primarily 4 types of bhasha in Srimad Bhagavatam. The first type is called Laukik Bhasha. Laukik Bhasha means worldly language. Shukadeva Goswami, in the course of telling a story, has to also give an account of the life and activities of materialistic persons sometimes. It comes in the course of the story. And so the verses that describe their words, they're actually not praman. You can't follow them. You can use them as praman of, oh, this is the foolishness of conditioned souls. It's praman for that. But you can't quote them as evidence for what we should do. For example, Chitraketu Maharaj. Chitraketu Maharaj, he had so many wives, but he didn't have a child. He was striving for so long. And finally, by the blessing of Angira Rishi, he had a son. And he was so attached to that son until he got to the age of 5. And then all the other co-wives became so envious, they poisoned the child. And when Chitraketu Maharaj saw the dead body of his son lying there, he became completely distraught. And he began to lament, and there are so many verses of his lamentation. So it's praman for the madness of attachment of the conditioned souls, but it's not a teaching, you know. If your dog dies, you can't say, look, it says in the Srimad Bhagavatam, if someone you love dies, you have to lament like this. Look, the verses are right there. It's how lament. You can't quote from the Bhagavatam like this as evidence. So this is called Lokik Bhasha. Some verses of Srimad Bhagavatam deal with the speech of conditioned souls. And they're not for our example. Another example would be Pururava Maharaj. Pururava Maharaj was wandering, and by chance he came across Urvashi, a very beautiful Apsara, and he was attracted to her, and at once he began to speak in a sweet way to try to seduce her. So you cannot quote this and say, look, it says here in the Bhagavatam, if you by accident you bump into a really beautiful woman, you have to speak nicely to her and try to, you know. This is not the teaching of Bhagavatam. So this is all Lokik Bhasha. This Lokik Bhasha, it doesn't carry the weight of the higher bhashas that you find in Bhagavatam. So the next level of bhasha in Srimad Bhagavatam is called Paramat Bhasha. Paramat Bhasha means, Mat means opinion, and Para means another person. So Shukadev Goswami is speaking, but it's not his own opinion, it's the opinion of someone else. So we can give an example like Kashyapa Muni. Kashyapa Muni's wife, Diti, she wanted to unite with him, but it was an inauspicious moment. And at that time, he begins to speak about Dharma. He says, my dear wife, it's the Dharma of a husband to always please his chaste wife, and so on. And he speaks very sweet words to try to calm her down and control her, flattering words. And what he's saying, he speaks on the subject of Dharma, but this is not Shukadev Goswami's opinion. Shukadev Goswami doesn't have the opinion that you should flatter other people to try to control them, because to create domestic harmony or anything. Yeah? You know Shukadev Goswami? The moment he was born, he was straight out the door. His father was calling, Ha Putra, but he didn't reply, only the echo came back from the trees. Yeah? So that is this language is Paramat Bhasha. Shukadev Goswami is speaking something, but it's not his opinion. It is the opinion of Kashyapa at that moment. But of course, he in the end, he caved in and he was united with his wife, and the glorious result was Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. So, but that was also part of the Lord's plan on a higher level. So another example of the Paramat Bhasha is the example of the Vishwarup. You know, Vishwarup is a great Brahmin, and he was the Purohit of Indra. So when Indra had lost his kingdom, he needed help from the Brahmanas, because that's how he lost the kingdom in the first place, by not properly respecting the Brahmanas. So at that time, Vishwarup instructed Indra in what? Remember? The Narayan Kavach. The Narayan Kavach. And so then Indra, he began to chant this Narayan Kavach for protection and to win and in the war with the demons and get his kingdom back. So the glories of the Narayan Kavach are there in Srimad Bhagavatam. So I know some devotees of, I recite the Narayan Kavach every day. It's very powerful for protection. Do you think that Shukadev Goswami is interested in retaining the kingdom of heaven? The kingdom of heaven is nothing to Shukadev Goswami. So this is not his own opinion. This is someone else's opinion. In that case, Vishwarup, the Brahmin, Vishwarup, and he's instructing Indra. So the story is there. In a bigger context, there's a transcendental lesson in the whole pastime. But in that episode itself, no, we don't do that. We don't engage in offering prayers to the Supreme Lord so that we can get a stronger, secure position in the material world. Yeah? You know, when Bali Maharaj was bound up by the ropes, the Nagapash, by the snake ropes, and then he was pushed down into the lower planetary systems. He was all tied up and he was lying in a cave, and Bali Maharaj was crying. Do you know why he was crying? He wasn't crying because he'd lost a kingdom of heaven. He was crying because Indra had the darshan of the Supreme Lord Vamandev, and instead of asking for bhakti, he asked to get his kingdom back. What a wasted opportunity. Why? Because Bali Maharaj was crying, because he knew that even though the life of Indra is the 71 Divya Yugas, for us that's thousands and millions of years. But that life of Indra, that is the span of just one of the Manvantars, that life of Indra is not even a blink in the eye of eternity. And he swapped eternal life of perfect loving service to the Supreme Lord to rule over a kingdom for a period of time that is less than the duration of the blink of an eye of eternity. So Bali Maharaj had lost everything and he was crying, but he was crying for Indra, who thought he'd won everything. So Shukadev Goswami that's not his opinion. now I'm telling you the story of the Nishinga Kavacha. All devotees, take notes. Write it down, recite it every day. No, that's absolutely not Shukadeva Goswami's opinion. So that is called Paramat Bhasha, the language of another's opinion. Then, in Srimad Bhagavatam, there's another type of language. That is called Swamat Bhasha. Swamat Bhasha means Shukadeva Goswami's own opinion. So we can give an example of Shukadeva Goswami's own opinion. In the beginning of the second canto, what do we find there? The beginning of the second canto, that's where Shukadeva Goswami speaks for the first time. And Srila Prabhupada calls that chapter the first step in God realization. Right? And so Shukadeva Goswami is describing two types of yogis, Yoga Rudha and Yoga Rurukshu. There is the yogi who has ascended beyond duality, and the yogi who wants to ascend beyond duality. And he gives two different recommendations for them. For the yogi who has ascended, he should utter the syllable Om, and he should have the darshan of the Paramatma in his heart. But for the yogi who has not ascended yet, he should meditate on what? The Virat Rup, the form of the universe. And Shukadeva Goswami gives a very long description of that. You should think that the sun and the moon are like the eyes of the Supreme Lord. You should think that the rivers are his veins. You should think that the colorful birds, like in Rukmangat Zoo, he's got so many colorful birds. These are the manifestation of the Lord's artistic sense. How beautiful they are. So this is the Supreme Lord's artistic sense in the colorful birds. And you should think that the trees and the grass, they're the hairs on the body of the universal form. And the mountains are the bones. And he gives a very long description. You all know it, so I'll not go into more detail. And he said that the yogi who wants to ascend, he's not there yet, but he wants to ascend, he should meditate on this Virat Rup, the universal form of the Lord. Now, we don't do that, right? We don't do that. But is there something valuable in this katha for us? Yes, it's something very valuable. Srila Jiva Goswami, explaining this, he says that if you try to meditate on something that you haven't seen, you actually increase vikalpa, imagination. The buddhi, our intelligence, is one rajasic transformation of ahankar, ego. If you see in the creation of the world how the elements come. So your buddhi, your intelligence, is a rajasic transformation of ahankar, ego. So it's not, that is really the post-egoistic mind. Whatever your intellect is doing, it's under the shadow of the ego, and there's some rajas in it. And so imagination, vikalpa, is one function of the rajasic ego. And so if a person is trying to meditate on something that they've never seen, it increases vikalpa, and that's actually not favorable for going into samadhi trance. Just like, perhaps you know, Narad Muni, he was instructing Yudhishthira Maharaj, and he said, Shraddha vatsan anubortato na manahas prastum ahati. He said, you should know, Yudhishthira Maharaj, that the mind cannot touch anything it has not experienced previously. So let's say if you can imagine things that you've seen in this life. If you saw a horse and you saw a bird, you can imagine a flying horse. And you can even imagine things you haven't seen because they're things that you've experienced in a previous life. So you have some sanskars as well. Maybe you've had dreams when you're flying and things like that, because before you were in the swarg, in the heavens, and you could fly around at will. So, but the mind cannot touch anything that it hasn't experienced before, because basically in your mind you have all these sanskars from so many lifetimes, and whatever pops up in the mind is just a collection or a collage of those experiences. So because a conditioned soul has never seen the Paramatma, has never seen Krishna, if you try to imagine, then it increases vikalpa, and it's actually not favorable for going into trance. This is the teaching here. And so for the more advanced yogi, when he says the syllable Om, he can have darshan of the Paramatma in the heart, because Om and the Paramatma, Abhinatvam Nama Namino, they're non-different. So he's experiencing the spurti of the holy name. Swayam eva spuratyada. But the yogi who has not come to that stage yet, it's better for him to meditate on the universal form. And the reason is this: because the conditioned soul generally, he looks at the world and he thinks it's just like a chaos of random events going on, and objects and people and things randomly bumping into each other, and everything is, it's out of control. But the fact of the matter is that everything in the universe is completely under the control of the Supreme Lord, and every form is his manifestation. Actually, that's what Arjuna realized in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna was all depressed. Oh, there's this big war going on. Alas, alas, I'm having a nervous breakdown. Dropped his bow. Oh, Govinda, I will not fight. I'm not going to fight. Then Krishna showed him the universe form. And then Arjuna realized, oh, I've been really foolish, because it's all you. You are all the warriors on all sides. You are everything. And he came out of illusion. And so the meditation on the universal form is to integrate our vision, which has become it's fractured. We think there are so many swatantra vastu, independent substances. We have a fractured vision. And so the beginning yogi, he'll meditate, no, everything is a manifestation of the Supreme Lord, to integrate his vision, to make his mind become peaceful, to become free from the rajas in the mind. And then when he says the holy name, Om, the Paramatma will appear, and then he can have darshan of the Paramatma in his heart and meditate on Paramatma. You see? So this is why in the Kanishta Adhikari stage, we're not encouraged to speculate, but rather the Supreme Lord kindly appears before us in a form that we can see, so we can meditate upon him. Krishna appears in the form of the deity. We can see the deity. We can meditate on the deity. We're not speculating on some form that we've never seen, and increasing the rajasic vikalpa. So, what's the subject? Lokik Bhasha, Paramat Bhasha, and now we're discussing Swamat Bhasha. So this is Swamat, that's Shukadeva Goswami's own opinion. It's his opinion that of the two types of yogis, they have to have a different approach because of their different adhikars and the reasons why. And the essence, we can take that, also applies for us as well. If we want to actually enter into the samadhi, trance, on the holy name, we should not interfere with the creeper of Nam Prabhu. Because the yogi, actually, he's following a rohapanta, an ascending process. He's trying for self-elevation. He has some kartrita abhiman, I am the doer. But bhakti is avarohapanta. We open ourselves to become receptive to avaroha, the descending grace. And we depend completely on Krishna. You see? A yogi is trying to do mechanically pranayama and remove the coverings of the soul. But the gopis, they just surrender to Krishna, and Krishna personally comes and steals all their coverings when they're bathing in the Jamuna and climbs up a tree. So that's the difference. The yogi is trying to remove the coverings by his own effort, but for the devotee, Krishna comes and steals your coverings. This is one of the meanings, one of the many meanings of the Vastraharan Leela, that our process is a descending process. We depend on mercy. I remember Param Pujapad Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Maharaj, he was explaining that when you engage in Harinam, Nam is Karta. Then Nam Prabhu, the holy name, is the doer. Don't think that you're the doer. Surrender and let the holy name do his magic. And if you think that you're the doer, then the name will, okay, if you want to take care of yourself. But when someone surrenders, then see Krishna, he does everything to help that devotee. Sisi Radha Govinda Ju Ki Jai. Now, this language of Bhagavatam is called Swamat Bhasha. It's Shukadeva Goswami's own opinion. It's his own opinion. But it's not the conclusion. It's not the conclusion. So, the conclusion is found where? in the fourth type of bhasha, that is Samadhi bhasha. You probably heard that from Gurudev. He would sometimes say, what language is the Bhagavatam written in? Sanskrit? Yeah, but no, it is Samadhi bhasha. You see, the Srimad Bhagavatam it's trance language. You know, if you're born in China, you can speak Chinese. So if you're born in Russia, you can speak Russian. But what do you need to understand Samadhi bhasha? You have to be born in the plane of Samadhi. To understand Samadhi bhasha, we have to go into Samadhi. And this is why we have to hear Bhagavatam from a Vaishnava who spends at least a considerable portion of his time in Samadhi. And from his Samadhi, he brings out the meanings of the Samadhi bhasha of Srimad Bhagavatam. So everything that Shukadeva Goswami has described about Krishna's pastimes, see Krishna dancing on the head of Kaliya, see Krishna lifting Govardhan hill, see Krishna dancing with the Braja Gopis, this is all Samadhi bhasha. This is the best Brahman. Each one of the languages is superior to the next. So this is the highest Brahman. But this Samadhi bhasha, also, the words which are spoken by Shukadeva Goswami, they have different vrittis. Vritti means the power of a word to convey meaning. In other words, when you hear a word, then your mind modifies, there's a chitta vritti, there's a movement in your mind and you identify it. Oh, this word means this thing. You connect that sound with you connect the reference with the referent. So that is called vritti, the power to connect the reference with the referent. So there are different vrittis, shabda vrittis. So the first one, it is called the abhidha vritti. Abhidha vritti means the dictionary meaning of the word, the direct dictionary meaning of the word. So one may have a great memory and memorize the whole Sanskrit dictionary and read Srimad Bhagavatam. Will he be able to understand? No, not possible. The next type of meaning, there are parts of Srimad Bhagavatam which are written in abhidha vritti, direct meaning. For example, in the 5th canto, there's a description of the structure of the universe. So when Shukadeva Goswami Pad says that there are 14 planetary systems, it's not like there's some secret rasic meaning in that. There are 14 planetary systems. You can take it straight. That's what he means to say. But often he doesn't speak like that, especially in Krishna's pastimes. So there's a second type of meaning of words. It's called lakshana vritti. Lakshana means the associated meaning. When the direct meaning fails, it doesn't make sense, then we automatically we defer to accepting lakshana vritti. You do it subconsciously. So everyone raise your hand. Everyone raise your hand. Yeah, okay. So you just refer to lakshana vritti. Why? Because if you took the abhidha vritti, the dictionary definition, you would have gone like this. But you took it to mean raise your arm, because the arm is associated with the hand. You see how you did that? Brilliant. So, lakshana vritti means by association. So the classical example is Gangayam Goshaha. Gangayam Goshaha means the village on the Ganges. So if someone says, where's your village? Gangayam Gosha. My village is on the Ganges. Now when you hear that, you know that no one built their house on the water. Right? You mean that the Ganges, any river has 2 banks and the village is on one of the banks, or maybe on both sides even. So when you hear the words, my village is on the Ganga, by Lakshana vritti, it means on the bank of the Ganga. So very often you'll see, we speak in that way, and some verses of Bhagavatam are like that. You don't take the direct meaning, but the Gona, not Mukhya, but Gona. Secondary meaning, Lakshana. Then the third type of vritti is called Vyanjan vritti. Vyanjan vritti means the suggested meaning. And this is the suggested meaning is prominent in kavya, poetry. It's prominent in kavya. Poets don't write what they want to say. They write something else in such a genius way that when you hear it, you feel in your heart what they're trying to express. So a simple example of Vyanjan vritti would be, let's say, if you ask, oh, I want to visit you. How can I get to your place? And then the person says, Ganga yam Gosha, well, I live on the Ganga. So then by suggestion, it means, if you want, you can come by boat. Right? He wants to say, you can come by boat. But he said, my village is on the Ganga. So another example, let's say there's a teacher, and he's giving a lecture, and the lecture's going on and on and on, and all the students are like bored and falling asleep. So then one of the students might say, oh, sir, the sun is about to set. What does that mean? It means, come on, it's late now, we all have to go home. Right? But he's very polite, because that's the nature of a poet, very dignified and polite. So he'll say something else, and the implication is there. So that's called the Vyanjan Briti. So kavya, poetry, is always in Vyanjan Briti. If the suggested meaning is called dhwani. Dhwani, the suggested meaning. It's compared to, let's say, you have a gong or a bell, and you strike the bell. Bong. But then what happens? Bong, wong, 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 wong. There are after waves of sound. So the actual sound of the poem or the statement is like the striking of the gong. But the dhwani are the waves of suggestion that appear in the heart. And so that is called dhwani. And then there might be another dhwani inside that dhwani. That's called the anudhwani. And if the poet is really brilliant, like Rupa Goswami, there might be another dhwani inside the anudhwani called the pratidhwani. And there might be another one in that, the pratyanudhwani. So only those who are rasik, when they read the Bhagavatam, then the waves are coming. And inside each wave, there's another wave and another wave. So if you compare poetry to a person, the Kavya Purush, that's called the Kavya Purush. If you compare poetry to a person, then his body is made of Shabda Artha, the words and their meanings. That's just the face value words and meanings. Then he's decorated with so many ornaments. Those are all the alankars. Like Anuprashalankar, alliteration. And Rupa Kalankar, Yama Kalankar. There are so many different types of alankars, literary embellishments, and they decorate the poetry. But then the pran of the Kavya Purush is dhwani, the suggested meaning. So the suggested meaning should always be superior to the direct meaning. And then it's called the Uttam Kavya, fine poetry. But if there's no suggested meaning in the poem, then that poem is called Nishpran, dead. It has no pran, it's not living. So Srimad Bhagavatam, it speaks to us in different ways. Srila Jiva Goswami Pad in his Tattva Sandarbha, he says, Vedaha Puranam Kavyam Cha Prabhu Mitram Priyebhava Bodhayanti Tihi Prahus Trivid Bhagavatam Puna. The meaning is this, that there are three types of literature. First, Vedas, then Puranas, and then Kavya, poetry. And these three types of literature, they instruct us in three different ways. Prabhur Mitram Priyevacha. The Vedas instruct us like a master, Prabhu. That means, who's a master, he doesn't have to beat about the bush, he can just say, do this. Because he has higher status and his servant is obliged to follow. So the Vedas say, Satyam Bada, speak the truth. The Vedas say, Dharmachara, follow your duties, your dharma, and you just have to follow. Utishtata, Jagrata, Prapya Varam Nibodhata. Get up, wake up, and strive for that which is the goal of life. So the Vedas give these, they speak in the imperative, what you need to do, like a Prabhu. Then you have Puranas. So Prabhu Mitram. The Puranas instruct us like a friend. You see? A friend doesn't think he's better than us or superior to us. A friend feels equal, so he's reluctant to give direct imperative instructions. But if a friend sees his friend, let's say he's in a difficult situation, then he'll tell him, Once upon a time, there was this fellow I knew, and he did this, this, and this, and it was a total disaster. And then his friends listening to the story, and he's figuring out, wow, I was thinking of doing those things too. Maybe it will be a total disaster for me. I'm glad he told me all about that. So a friend doesn't give you direct instructions. He may tell a story, and from that story, he managed to circumvent the false ego and get a message through. You see? So the Puranas are like that. The Puranas tell us so many stories, and through the stories, when we're hearing them, we identify with them somewhat, with the characters, and in this way, we receive instructions. So the Puranas instruct us like stories. Then you have Kavya. Kavya means poetry. Poetry is full of dhwani, it's full of suggestions. So poetry instructs us like a lover, like a heroine. When the hero meets with his heroine, then she teaches him so many things indirectly. And he's enjoying so much that he doesn't even know what a good education he's getting. So poetry is like that. You know, in Vedic culture, the wife cannot just come in front of her husband when she's upset or wants something and, you know, with an angry face to start yelling. That's not Vedic culture. In the Chanakya Pandit, he said that one should immediately leave that inauspicious place where a woman has an angry face. All the men are writing it down. So in Vedic culture, if the wife wants something, she'll come with a very sweet smile and a humble mood and just drop some hints here and there. Right? And then the husband hears a word and he'll stop and think about it and go, aha, finally I understand what she wants, and then he'll do it, and then they'll all be happy, like that. So the Kavya instructs us like a beloved, not directly, but through the suggestions. So, Bodhayanti tihi prahus triv vrid bhagavatam puna, Jiva Goswami Pad says. And the Srimad Bhagavatam instructs us in all three ways. Sometimes the Bhagavatam gives us a direct order, like a Prabhu, like the Vedas. Sometimes it tells us a story like a friend to teach us indirectly. And sometimes it teaches us like Kavya, like a beloved. And everything is hidden in the dhwani. So there is Abhidabriti, the direct meaning. Then what's the next one called? Associated meaning? Lakshana Briti. Right, that's good. And then the third one, Vyanjan Briti, through suggestion. And then there's another Briti, it's called Tatparya Briti. What is Tatparya Briti? It's exactly like an archer, a warrior, takes an arrow. And he shoots his arrow, and the arrow flies, and it pierces the armor of his opponent. But then it pierces the cloth beneath the armor, and then it pierces the skin beneath the cloth, and then it goes through the ribs, and then it goes into the heart, and that's the Tatparya. You see, when he shot the arrow, it wasn't his intention just to make a nick on his armor. It's actually his Tatparya, his purport, the ultimate meaning was that the arrow should pierce the heart. But to get to that heart, it had to pierce so many other layers as well. So in Shastra, so many things are spoken. But the expertise of the pure Vaishnavas is that they understand what is the Tatparya Vritti, what is the essence, what is the message that ultimately this Shastra wants to give. So we can give one example from Srimad Bhagavatam, employing how Shukadev Goswami is employing the Vyanjan Briti, the power of suggestion through his poetry to bring us to the Tatparya of Srimad Bhagavatam. Perhaps you know that on the full moon night of the Sharad season, when Sri Krishna, though he was very much attracted to the love of Braj Gopis, and Braj Gopis were also attracted to Sri Krishna by very powerful anurag, but they had not had a chance to meet yet. So Krishna decided, Bhagavan apitaratri shad utfulla malika viksharantam manaschakre yogamayam upasrita. He decided, manaschakre means he made up his mind. Tonight, I will meet with the Braja Gopis. And so he went out into the forest at Bangsi Bhat and Shriman Rasarasarambi Bangsi Bhata Tatas Tataha Karshan Venu Swanayra Gopi Gopinata Sri Stuna. And he called all the gopis to meet for the Rasalila. He saw them all arrive. And then of course it's the nature of love, some teasing. There's always, when love is very pure, it's not expressed, I love you. That's fake. That is lust, disguised as love. Where there's real love, it's never directly expressed. So when they all came, he began to tease them. Swagatam bo mahabhaga, priyam kim karavamiva. Bradashanamayan kachit bhutagamana karanam. Oh fortunate ladies, welcome to the forest of Vrindavan. Tell me, why did you come here exactly? The gopis can't believe. What is he saying? But this is kind of formal talk. Of course he knows. He's the one who called us. He knows why we came. So Krishna's teasing them. Actually, Sanatana Goswami gives one hidden meaning of the Bhagavatam, that all the gopis had come, but Radharani was delayed and she wasn't there yet. So Krishna was just passing time. And so he teases them. And they speak all the Pranay Geets, and then at the end of the Pranay Geet, finally Radharani arrives, and then Krishna laments, oh, I was just joking, and then he begins the Rasalila. So this is an example of how in Srimad Bhagavatam the Tatparya Vritti is hidden in the Dwani. Because what is the ultimate message of Srimad Bhagavatam? Radha Dasyam. Radharani is supreme. So they began to dance in the Rasalila, but each and every gopi thought, I am the only one that Krishna is dancing with. And they had Sobhagyamad, they had Garv, they had some pride. Now that pride is not a bad pride, it's not bad at all, because it's a Sanchari Bhav. It's a Rasa Samagri, it's one of the ingredients of Rasa. So there are 5 ingredients of Rasa, and the Vyabhachari Bhavs are one of those ingredients, and one of them is Garv. So gopis become proud, and when Krishna sees a gopi with whom he meets, so proud that her life is successful, that gives happiness to Krishna. Etayeva se sukha Krishna sukha poshe he tu gopi preme nahi kama doshe. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Pad said, the happiness that the gopis feel nourishes Krishna's happiness, and therefore there's no fault, there's no kam dosh, no defect of selfishness in their love. So that's not a problem. But one thing is a problem. One of the symptoms of the gav, the pride, the unmad that comes from the joy of meeting with Krishna is that you don't pay attention to what others are doing. So if you're not paying attention to what others are doing, how can you have a group dance? Right? You can't have a group dance unless everyone's, has some vision of each other. So there's a certain, of course, it's not choreographed exactly. It's spontaneous, but anyway, they can all see each other and they dance together. So Krishna wanted to dance with all the gopis together in one group with the Radhika in the middle. So that wasn't possible. So then, see Krishna, he disappeared. Tasam tat sobhagamadam vikshamanam chakeshava prashamana prasadeya tatraiva antadiyata. In order to pacify the garv of the gopis, and in order to give a special mercy to Srimati Radhika, Krishna disappeared from there and he was alone with Radhika. At that time, when Sri Krishna was alone with Radhika, all the other gopis, they became mad. They didn't know where he was. And they were searching here and there, looking here and there. Sometimes speaking to the trees, sometimes speaking to Tulsi, sometimes praying to the dust of Vrindavan. The trees didn't give mercy. The Tulsi didn't give mercy. Trees didn't give mercy because they're male and they're so tall and proud. They didn't listen to their request. The Tulsi didn't give mercy because Tulsi's, what does she know about separation? She's always on the lotus feet of Krishna. But the dust of Vrindavan gave mercy. When they prayed to that dust, they looked and they saw Krishna's footprints there. So the dust of Vrindavan gave mercy to them, and they began to follow the footprints. So at that time, as they're walking through the forest, Shukadev Goswami relates so many verses. And from the bhav of each verse, you can understand what gopi, which type of gopi is speaking. He doesn't say it directly. Where is it? In the Dhwani. It's in the Dhwani. Vyanjan Briti, it's in the Dhwani. So Shukadev Goswami said, one gopi is saying, Bahum Priyanks Upadaya Grihita Padmo Ramanujas Tulasikali Kulamadande Enviyamanam Apinastarava Pramanamam Kimvabi Nandati Charan Pranayavalokai. So beautiful. Just the Shabdartha first, just the meaning of the words. Some gopis are saying, "O trees, did Krishna walk this way with his beloved, with his arm upon her shoulder, carrying in his hand a lotus flower, and followed by bumblebees who were blinded with intoxication? And at that time, because you see by the glance of Krishna, all the trees burst into flowers and fruits appear, and the branches become heavy with the fruits and flowers, and then they're weighed down. So the gopis are thinking, on the ecstasy of seeing Krishna and his beloved, did you bow down to them? But then they just walked past and didn't look at you. Because when a junior bows down to the senior, then the senior can reach down to pick them up and embrace them. And so then they come up from their pranam. But they're saying, oh, you bowed down, but Krishna did not glance at you with a beautiful pranayavaloka, a glance full of pranay, full of very intimate love, full of confidence. Did he glance at you in that way or not? It seems not, because the trees are still bowing down. You see? So that's just the Shabdartha, the meaning, the words and their meanings of the verse. Now, what's in the Dhwani? What's in the Dhwani here? Oh, so much nectar. First of all, if an ordinary person is walking in the forest and they see, I was just actually in New Zealand and I was at a farm. It was this devotee had a big avocado farm and banana as well. And they were so full of fruits, the branches were reaching down. Especially some of the banana trees, they were right down like this. So it's not an uncommon thing. But Sarva Bhuteshu Ya Pasyat Bhagavat Bhavam Atmana Bhutani Bhagavat Tatman Isha Bhagavatottama. It's the nature of a Mahabhagavat that they see their own bhav in others. So the gopis are saying, oh, Krishna came here with Priya. Priya means his beloved. So here Priya is actually Shrimati Radhika. It's a name, Priya Priyatam. Priya Priyatam is Radhika and Krishna. So those gopis are thinking, oh trees, it must be that Radha Krishna came by and then you bowed respectfully before them, but you're still bowing down. So they did not look at you lovingly. Why? Because some person who is speaking this, that's their mood, that they're very respectful to Radha Krishna and they always feel fortunate to have their loving glance. Bahum Priyanksu Upadaya Grihita Padmo. Krishna's arm was on the shoulder of his beloved, and in his hand he was carrying a lotus flower. What's the meaning? Ramanujas Tulasikali Kulaya Madanda. The Alikul, that means a whole dynasty of bumblebees. They were murdered, intoxicated, and they were blinded by intoxication, following Radha and Krishna. Why? They were blinded Tulasikut alikula, by the fragrance of tulsi. So usually a bumblebee, tulsi is very fragrant, tulsi is very fragrant when the manjaris are opening. So then a bumblebee smelling that fragrance, bumblebee with eyes will smell the fragrance first and then see the tulsi and then come and take that fragrance. But these bumblebees, they're smelling the fragrance of tulsi, but there's no tulsi there. They're just following the fragrance and they can't see. They're blind with intoxication. So the confidential meaning is this, that after Radha Krishna's loving pastimes together, the fragrance of tulsi emanates from the body of Srimati Radhika. And this is why Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha, because the fragrance of Krishna is Radhika's fragrance after their beautiful pastimes together. Actually, I have a very dear friend and Shiksha Guru, Sri Achutalal Bhatta Goswami, and his ancestors are in Braj since the time of the 6 Goswamis. And he said his great-great-grandfather was friends with Vishwanath Thakur. So he was just saying one katha that Vishwanath Thakur told his great-great-grandfather. He said, do you know why when we have Bhagavatam class, the Tulsi should be there next to the speaker? Because she's like a presiding judge of the ceremony. And when a person speaks the katha, which is pleasing to Radha and Krishna, then she gives her endorsement by emitting a divine fragrance. It's like a bravo, sadhu, sadhu, like that. And then all the devotees can experience that divine fragrance, those whose senses are purified. So this is why Tulsi is there next to us when we have the Bhagavatam class. So, where were we? Oh yes. So Radha and Krishna, they're walking through the forest. And the bumblebees are following Radhika because the fragrance is coming from her. And that's why Krishna has the lotus in his right hand. Because one hand is on her shoulder and the other one, the bees are coming and Radha is like this and a little bit of fear. And Krishna's, to allay her fears, he's taking the lotus and whisking them away. Shoo. Like that. And they're walking by. So someone is asking, some gopis are asking this question, oh trees, and as they walk by, Kimvar binandati charan pranayava, look, did Radha and Krishna glance at you? Did Krishna glance at you with a loving glance? I don't think so, that's why you're still bowing down. Why? Oh, that is also in the verse. Ramanujas tulasikali kudla madande. Here, gopis are calling Krishna Ramanuja. So why is that? Because he has a big Sri Vaishnav tilak? You seen Ramanuja? No. Ramanuja means the younger brother of Balaram. Ram, right? Krishna's the younger brother of Balaram. So why would the gopis refer to Krishna as the younger brother of Balaram at that time? Can you think? It's in the Dwani. You see, Rasid Vaishnavas who have deep sanskars from the previous lives, when they read such a verse, then the waves of the Dwani and Anudwani, Pratidwanika. So the meaning is this, that everyone knows in Braja that Krishna, he's the son of Nanda and Yashoda. But they know that Balaram is the son of Rohini and Vasudeva in Mathura. So the Yadus in Mathura, do you know what they're famous for? Yeah, drinking problem. That's why Mathura is called Madhupuri. You know, Radharani chastised the bumblebee. Madhupaketava bandhu mas pishangram. Hey Madhupa, drinker of honey. Madhu means wine. Get out from here, you're a drunkard. If a drunk person touches you, become contaminated, so don't touch my feet. So Mathura is called Madhupuri. It means the city of wine. How did the Yadavas disappear from this world? They all got drunk and fought with each other. Of course, that's a Mayik Leela. It never really happened. That was just shown it's a Asura Mohan Leela, to bewilder the Asuras. But still, it's in line, it's in keeping with their history. If you look at very ancient, if you go to the Mathura Government Museum, it's an amazing place there, and they have very ancient statues of Balaram. So in the ancient iconography of Balaram, he always has a wine cup in his hand. Varuni. There's another pastime, right? Balaram's drinking Varuni during his Rasalila. And then he calls he thinks, oh, my gopis, they're so tired, it's too far to walk to the Jamuna. Hey, Jamuna, come here. Kalindi, come on. But she won't come because she doesn't want to go near an intoxicated person. So the reason the gopis are calling Krishna Ramanu just tulaslikali kulamadande is to associate with Krishna is associate of Balaram. So he must have become intoxicated too. Mm-hmm. So if someone is drunk and someone bows down to them, they might not see, they might just walk past because they're so intoxicated. Mm-hmm. But the question is, what is Krishna intoxicated with? Radha Rasa Sutaniti. See, Krishna is intoxicated in the ocean of Srimati Radhika's prem. That's why he's Ramanuja. And that's why he didn't notice the trees when they bowed down. Mm-hmm. So which gopis are speaking this verse? The Manjaris. Because an ordinary person will see a tree and, oh, maybe it's just the branch is broken for some reason. But when the Manjaris see a tree bowing down, then they have this purti of Radha and Krishna alone walking through the forest, and Krishna doesn't even know where he is, what he's doing, what day it is, whether it's day or night, because he's completely mohita. Radharani is Govinda Mohini. He's completely bewildered by the prem of Srimati Radhika, and therefore he didn't notice the trees and they're still bowing down. So this verse is expressing the extreme Radha Paksha, extreme dedication to Radhika. It's spoken by the Manjaris, and therefore this is the Dwani of the verse, and the Tatparya Vritti is Srimati Radhika is supreme. All you are hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, surrender and become her dasis. Understand? That's the Tatparya Vritti. And there are many places like this throughout Srimad. That's the conclusion. Not meditating on the universal form. Not reciting the Narayan Kavacha so you can get your house back. The Tatparya Vritti is this, Radha Dasyam. Now, it may be that there's some really cultured, super educated person who knows about kavya and worldly poetry, and he might read Srimad Bhagavatam and be able to extract that. But he still cannot get the truth. Because there are 3 vrittis also to be considered. Perhaps you have heard Gurudev use this phrase sometimes. He would say there are 2 types of diksha, Vidvat Ruddhi diksha and Avidvat Ruddhi diksha. This phrase Vidvat Ruddhi, it's a very, very important, and it was Vidvat Ruddhi. It is central to the teaching of Prabhupada Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur. And he actually began to write a book called the Vaishnava Manjusa, in which he was giving the Vidvat Ruddhi Britti of the terminology within our Vaishnav Siddhanta. And he went to one king to tell him about this project, and the king gave him some money to sponsor the printing of this book. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur left before it was finished. But he did say when he was working on it, he said, this book is so important. If I don't finish it, I'll take birth again in this world in order to complete it. That's how important it was to him. So, during our festival, I want to discuss something about Vidvat Ruddhi Britti. Tonight, I'll just give a little glimpse, just more introduction. Vidvat Ruddhi Britti is the power of a word to illuminate Advait Gyan. That means to illuminate non-dual consciousness. In Vidvat Ruddhi Vritti, the referent and the reference are non-different. And therefore, as the devotee is hearing, simultaneously as he's hearing, he's having darshan. And that is actually how one understands Srimad Bhagavatam. And that's stated directly in the 2nd verse. Srimad Bhagavate Mahamune Krite Kimbaha Para Ishvaraha Sadhyo Ridyavarudayatar Kritibi Susrusabis Tachanat. Tachanat, what does Tachanat mean? Tachanat, in that very second, in that exact moment. Sadhyo, immediately. When the Kritibi, those who are refined, they're being they had their sanskars purified by the mercy of the Acharya. Those kritibi, those accomplished persons, as soon, exactly in that moment as they hear Srimad Bhagavatam, Hridyavaruddhate, Krishna becomes captured in their hearts. There is a spurti, immediate spurti. And as they are hearing the lila, they are seeing it. That's why in Braj there's a Brajbasi saying, Pat ute parda ute. It means when the Harikatha begins, the curtain rises. Going to Harikatha is not like going to lecture. It's like going to the theatre. You sit down in the audience, the music begins to play, that's the kirtan before the Harikatha. And then when the Harikatha begins, it's like the curtain of Maya rises and you have darshan of the spiritual world. And you see the pastimes. That is actual Shravanam. You know? We always use this word Shravanam, hearing. But in Vidvadrudibriti, Shravanam means direct experience. Because the angas of bhakti, what is bhakti? Bhakti is the vilas of Swarup Shakti. It's the play of the internal potency of the Lord. It's the essence of Samvit and Ladini. What does Samvit do? Samvit is the Swayam Prakash, self-revelation potency of the Lord. So if bhakti, Sravanam, is an anga of bhakti, then it's composed of Samvit and Ladini. And therefore there is an instantaneous self-revelation. And that is the actual meaning of Sravana. For the Kanishta Adhikari, they are hearing. But their hearing is not actually the anger of bhakti called hearing. It's a sublimb of archan. That's why Srila Gurudev often used to say that when you do bhajan, it's actually archan. But when I do archan, it's actually bhajan. Gurudev would sometimes say that. So you might be bewildered. What is he saying? He is giving a hint here to what we're discussing. That the actual hearing is simultaneous. Sadjo Hridyavaruddhate. Tatchana. Tatchana. Chan means that moment. Tatchan, that moment. And there's another meaning as well. The word chana in Sanskrit means a festival. Means a festival. And so Krishna becomes captured in your heart, sadhyo, immediately, because hearing Bhagavatam is a festival. In other words, when you sit down to hear Srimad Bhagavatam and a pure devotee begins to speak, Krishna's like, wait for me! I want to hear this Bhagavatam. And he runs and he sits in your heart to listen to that katha. Because hearing Bhagavatam is even a festival of joy for Krishna himself. Because all the glories of Radhika are there. In the Dwani of Srimad Bhagavatam. And Krishna's Rasik, so he can really relish it. So just as when there's a Ramayan, if anyone's speaking Ramayan, then you know that at the back of the audience somewhere there might be some old lady or some old man, but it's actually Hanuman in disguise. Whenever Ramayan's being spoken, Hanuman is always there somewhere in the audience. But when the Bhagavatam is spoken by the Bhakta Bhagavat, then Krishna comes and he sits in the heart of everyone who is the kriti, those who have become somewhat accomplished by the purification process of Diksha. Labdwa anugar acharya tena sandarshikta agama abhyachen mahapurusha abhyachen murtya bhimataya manaha. So, Vidvat Dhruti Briti means the power of the word to illuminate Advaya Gyan, the non-dual reality in the heart of the hearer. This next type of Briti is called Sadharan Ruddhi Briti. That means the ordinary meaning of the words, such as we've discussed, all these meanings, how an educated person can take the words. What I discussed everything before, any educated person who's never seen Krishna could learn those things and figure them out and do a good imitation also. So that's called the Sadharan Ruddhi Briti, the general meaning of the words. Now, Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, he defines, he said, Sadharan Ruddhi Briti has the power to fix the intellect on the meaning of words as those words are customarily used in conventional life. And therefore a person will read, you should hear the Srimad Bhagavatam. And they'll take the word Shravan, hearing, to mean the way that they take in everyday life. What does Shravan mean? And my phone rang. Did you hear it? Yeah, I can hear my phone's ringing. Right? They take it like that. But that is not Vidvat Ruddhi Briti. And then the next level is called Agya Ruddhi Briti. That is the way that words are understood by ignorant persons.
So that always also causes their intelligence to focus on objects as they are conceived in conventional life, but in a more contracted form that gives rise to the customs of Rajas and Tamas. So we have different types of people. Those in Rajas and Tamas will hear the words and they'll take it according to their experience. Those who are in the mode of goodness and educated will take the direct meanings and also some of the poetic meanings. But it's still theoretical. And those whose hearts are pure, in other words, those who are completely surrendered to Sri Guru, then the words will pierce the covering of their ear. That's called the Karna Bed Sanskar, the ear-piercing ceremony. Did you have that for your kids? Right? You have to have when they're born. There's the Jat Karan, and there's the name-giving ceremony, and the first grains, and a prashna. And all those ceremonies, there's the mundan, the hair cutting, and then there's the Karnabet. So this Karnabet Sanskar is a metaphor for the actual true initiation. And that is when Sri Guru, by his powerful Shabda Brahma, pierces the material covering of your ear, and the sound goes into the heart, and there is Prakashanti Mahatmana. Yasya deve parabhakti yata deve tatagaro tasyaiti katitaya prakash antima. That's the meaning of the verse. So there's a direct experience there. And that's why Shabda is called Praman. It's called proof. Shabda Praman, it's called proof. It's not called proof because it's in the Vedas. You know, sometimes people say, well, how do you know that the Bible is the word of God? And the answer is, because it's in the Bible. You know, so you can say, how do you know that the Vedas come from God? Because it's in the Vedas. You know, so that's that's a circular argument. It actually has, it sounds silly, but actually has some merit. It has some merit in the fact that only God has the power to reveal himself. We only know sense objects, and God's beyond the sense objects. So, you know, we have to get some authority from him, some revelation from him. So revealed theology is even though it seems to be dogmatic, it seems to have circular arguments, it's actually sound metaphysically. But that's not really what Shabda Praman means. Shabda Praman means the Shabda is the Praman. How do you know that Krishna is God? Because when I hear the Bhagavatam, I have the darshan of Krishna and meet with him. That's the answer. That's why it's called Shabda Praman. It proves that Krishna is God because when you listen, you meet Krishna. See? So that Vidvat Ruddhi Briti, that is the actual way in which one truly understands Shastra, not theoretically. Gurudev used to say, theoretical knowledge is no knowledge. Realization is knowledge. So I'll leave you with one more thought for this evening, because it's getting quite late. What is the Gaudiya Mat? What is the Gaudiya Mat? We can say Gaudiya. Gaudiya means those are the Mahaprabhu's Anugat Jan, the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And real Gaudiya means those who have darshan of the Rasaraj Mahabhav Swarup of Mahaprabhu. Purata Sundara Juti Kadamba Sandipitaha Sadaride Akhandare Spuratuva Sachinandana. Everyone knows the verse, right? Anarpita Chirim Chirat Kurunaya Vartinaha Kalo Samarapaitum Unnatu Ujjvala Rasam. Mahaprabhu was appearing in this age of Kali by his causeless mercy to completely give the beauty of Unnata Ujjvala Rasa. He came to give that. But then the question comes, well, how does he give it? How does he give that? So Rupa Goswami gives the answer. Hari Purata Sundata Juti Kadamba Sandipita Sada Hridaya Kandres Pratuvad Sachina. That's the answer. It's in the verse. May that golden complexion, Sachinan Gohari, appear in the innermost cave of your heart, resplendent with the radiance of molten gold. Because when a person has the darshan of Mahaprabhu in his heart, who's covered with the bhav and the kanti of Radhika, then by Yavadashray Vritti, that means the power by which her bhav is transferred to others, The Yavadashray Vritti of Radhika in Mahaprabhu causes her bhav to spread out, and it comes to you. So there's no question of Mahaprabhu giving or not giving. It's simply, if someone is touched by the effulgence of Mahaprabhu in their heart, then they receive this Unnata Ujjvala Rasa. So, those persons who have received that gift, who have been touched by the aura of Rasaraj Mahabhav, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they're called Gaudiyas. And mat, what does mat mean? Matanti vasanti chatraha iti mataha. The place where chatra means students, where students vasanti matanti, where students live in order to study Shastra under guidance of their Dikshaguru or Shikshaguru is called a mat. So this is a general meaning of Gaudiya mat. But only studying without the transmission of the direct experience through Shabda Brahma will not actually be really, you cannot become a Gaudiya, right? You cannot become a Gaudiya without that. So Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur gave his own original and beautiful definition of the Gaudiya mat. He said, in a world which is filled with the Agyarudi Vritti of sounds, that means with an ignorant understanding or interpretation of all types of words and sounds. In a world which is filled with the Agyarudi Vritti of sounds, the Gaudiya mat is the divine place of the descent of Vidvadrudhi Vritti. That was his definition of the Gaudiya mat. Very beautiful. So, because ISKCON and our Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti and Chaitanya Academy or whatever institutions we are from or connected with or serving in, they're all actually expansions of Prabhupada's Gaudiya mat. Then we have to see in that way that our places are the holy places of the divine descent of the Vidvadruti Vritti of sounds, the direct experience. So it was a little introduction to some of the subjects we'll discuss during the festival. Now please be kind to me, allow me to just get over my jet lag for a day or so, and we have to wait for all the devotees to arrive. Devotees are coming from around the world, and we'll begin, but it will be a full program. Mangalatik, Japa, morning class at 10 o'clock, evening class at 5:30 for 4 days. So be merciful to me and give me your darshan and association on those days. And if you have any friends or relatives or even enemies, just invite them all to participate in this festival. Srila Gurudev ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Aksaya Tritiya ki jai, Gaura Premanande.
Shri Prem Prayojan Prabhu ki jai.
I'm so delighted to see you all again after a long time, about 15 years. So we have what? Gora Arti now? Okay, wonderful, yes.